Hello, I'm Odin, and today I'm going to make a video game prop that was almost center stage and a big part of the marketing. What I mean by that is it was in the trailers for the game, right? It was in a lot of the videos they released early. It was in production stills or marketing pictures they put out. They made a giveaway they gave to the press. I mean, there's fan creations of it all over the place. But as of right now, it's not actually in the game. It's the Arasaka Thermal Katana from Cyberpunk 2077. I made my own template by tracing the outline of the katana from a video still. I use Adobe Acrobat to print out the file full size on many sheets of paper. After the printout was taped together, I cut out my template for the sword. Everything I looked up online, what little bit I could find, everything said 1.2 meters. This is exactly 1.2 meters. This is a pretty long sword. Okay. Now I'm going to make the katana in layers of plastic because that's the sort of crazy stuff that I do. Actually, yeah, this needs to be down. So what I'm looking at doing with this is building it up in layers. This separate piece, that's going to be the heated blade element. This is the only part that's going to glow. I'm going to make this from some fluorescent red plastic. This next piece here, I'm going to have 5 layers total, and the middle is going to be clear acrylic because there's a portion in between the heated blade and the handle that's supposed to be open. It's going to be a lot easier to build and wield if I make it solid but transparent. So I'm going to use clear acrylic, and I'm going to cut up my acrylic parts first. It's going to take some time to set up before I can cut these. This would be a good time for a quick game of War Robots. War Robots is a fun 6 vs 6 tactical shooter where you're the pilot of your own towering mech, stomping around the battlefield, customized just the way you like it, small and fast or huge and strong. The goal of the game is to get control over all the beacons of the battlefield by changing them to your team's color, or you can destroy all of your enemy's robots. The advantage of this game is that it's all about tactics. It's not just a fast, reactionary, run-and-gun, chaotic melee. Don't get me wrong, War Robots has some of that element as well. You can customize your robot in your pilot's hangar with unique abilities and more than 60 custom weapons, including flamethrowers. There's over 60 different robots to control. Add in some custom skins, and the customization combinations of robots and weapons are too many to count. Now I've got a welcoming bonus for you. Use my special link and you can get a starter pack which includes a robot with a weapon, a unique skin, 100 gold, and 50,000 silver. And the first 1,000 players who grab the game from my link will get a massive flamethrower that simply destroys your enemy. Now, this is a weapon in the game War Robots. You're not getting a real flamethrower sent to you in the mail. Some of you may remember that I've had War Robots on my channel before, and this is one of the few games that I've continued to play after my video was finished. And remember, the game is constantly being updated. There's a New Year's event happening right now. Help support my channel. Download War Robots using my special link. You'll get a ton of really cool stuff for the game, and if you're quick to click, you'll get a super cool flamethrower. I carefully traced the heated blade pattern onto some 6mm fluorescent red acrylic plastic. The thin paper template will move pretty easily, so I need to be careful not to warp it, and I only need to trace the pattern once. Because after I roughly cut it out of the bandsaw, I can tape that piece back on top of the rest of the acrylic. And then I can carefully cut out 2 copies of the exact same part while following the pattern line just once. And after this is done, I can cut into the clear acrylic, which I only need 1 of. Next, I cut 4 pieces of black foamed PVC sheet into 2-inch strips. Now these will make the back of the blade, the section behind the cutting edge. PVC sheet is 3mm thick. I need it to be 6mm, so I'm going to glue 2 sheets together with PVC pipe glue from the hardware store. It's going to take some time for the glue to set up before I can cut these. Like I said, I'm building this in layers. I've removed what the transparent area is, so I need to cut this next out of some black plastic. I'm going to do it from some foamed PVC sheet, and that'll glue on over the transparent plastic. It'll be, fairly thick. But that'll actually start to be the katana blade. This is the part that's supposed to be invisible and not really there, but I want that so I can glue on my blade, which this will be the blade. I just need to sharpen it still. I cut a pair of black PVC sheets that I had glued together. These are longer than just the back of the blade, and they're the full grip as well. To make it easier for cutting, I used some double-sided tape and stick both of them together. Now I only need to make one cut and I'll get two parts. So I used double back sticky carpet tape to put the two halves of the sword together so I could cut it out all at once in the bandsaw. Seemed like a great idea. Carpet tape isn't designed to come up easy. I've been doing this for about an hour. I had also stuck the halves of the glowing blade together with the same tape, because I still have to run them through a router to cut the groove that I need for the LEDs to hide in. The cutting edge of this router bit is slightly larger than the bearing guide that rides on top. When the plastic is set up against the bit, it'll cut a groove deeper where the blade is, and it won't cut at all where the bearing touches the plastic. Now, router bits spin crazy fast, so I need to be careful not to hurt myself, but also not to launch the plastic if I accidentally let go. Now, this is kind of true for most power tools. I got the cuts that I needed, now I need to separate the parts. Acrylic isn't that flexible. It would be very easy with pieces this thin to break them by stressing them too much trying to pull them apart. So I need to not do that. It became easier to just peel the protective paper from the plastic and let the tape just be stuck to the paper. The paper is there on new plastic sheets to protect the sides from scratches, because acrylic is pretty easy to scratch. I set the two halves back on top of each other, now with the cut groove on the inside, so I have tiny little 1.5 millimeter tall walls on the outside edge of this piece. Then I use a solvent glue called Weldon 4. It's made for gluing together acrylic plastic and is often used for making display cases. I had to cut the two parts and then glue them together like this because this particular color and type of acrylic plastic isn't sold thicker than a 6 millimeter sheet. At least, not that I know of. After the glue was fully set, I sanded the front edge to be smoother. It was cut by hand on the bandsaw, so you can see kind of a wavy edge on the front. And after a little bit of sanding, I have a leading edge of the blade that's pretty smooth. I removed all of the subtle wavy cuts from the bandsaw. Back to the router table, and this time I have a 45-degree bit in the router, with a guide bearing on top again. I'm not cutting the edges down to a sharp point. I'm just cutting the corner away a little bit on both sides, giving a good hint of a blade, but the prop won't actually be sharp. Then I sand down the sides with my 1-inch belt sander. This removes the little corners from the 45-degree router bit and fogs up the plastic so you won't be able to see the LED strip. So I put a lot of work into making the blade, right? It needs to be a glowing thermal blade, not a lightsaber, but it needs to glow. So I've got my transparent plastic, and the whole reason for this bit in the back is, of course, LED lights. I cut off a small strip of just 4. So that's about what I'm going to get. I'm okay with that. It's got hot spots. I cut thin strips of black ABS plastic. This will be a back for the LED strip. And I start doing like an accordion fold on the LEDs, moving them closer to each other. I have just enough space to make all of this fit inside of the cut on the blade. And I continue making these folds. I have enough LEDs, but all it takes is just one little mistake. I creased it, I think, too close to the LED, and I think I broke the connection at the LED. I have enough, but what I'm tempted to do after folding it down to this point and having creased it too hard is let the end be brighter and the rest is just going to be a strip. It took a little while to get the folds made, and I wasn't going to risk another break right when I get to the end. So I cut off the bad section, and I'm going to just let the rest of it be flat. I squeezed the thin ABS into the curve on the end of the blade. Weldon 4 will cement ABS plastic to acrylic, it just takes a few minutes to set. I start using spring clamps to hold the plastic in place and get the rest of the strip glued down. I let the glue sit for about an hour, and then I use a rotary tool to sand the extra ABS plastic from the sides of the blade. And I give the blade another sanding on the surface. All this sanding acts like a diffuser and it'll help to spread the light around and hide what's inside. I have a USB power bank that I plan to use to power the LED strip. It's nice to see that they still work after being glued into the blade. Perfect. That's what I want. getting very close to gluing this all together, which is pretty exciting because that means I'm getting pretty close to the end. What I want, or at least I think I am, how much time is left in the video? You can get an idea of my actual plan now. See, there's one black side with a clear center placed on top. The blade will attach here. I need to trim it still a little bit. I got this middle section. And I got another half. But then on top of all that, there's the two halves of the grip. They go together. They bulk the grip up a little bit. So this power bank could barely fit inside the handle, but that's only if I keep the plastic housing on the power pack. If you take the power pack apart and you don't want to use the plastic box, you end up with an 18650 battery and a fairly small little circuit. So this is what comes inside of one of these. This little circuit board has three big functions. If you use the micro USB, that's how you're going to charge the battery back up. If you use the USB-A plug, that's how you're going to power whatever you're sending power out to. An 18650 battery is 3.7 volt. This actually puts out 5.1 volt, so it can charge your phone or whatever you want to plug it into. So it has a little flyback converter, black magic, that makes it go from 3.7 volt to 5.1 volt. And all that's contained in this one little card here, which is really cool. By removing the bulk of the plastic box, this will fit with room to spare inside the handle. Let's push that down so you can kind of actually see it. I've got about a layer left over, so that's going to be fine. So all I want to do with this is figure out a spot towards the back where I can put it. And I'll start cutting through all the layers except for these outermost two. And that's where this guy is going to go. Then I need to make a line that goes to my piece of Cat 5 cable that I want to use to actually power. Let's see, is this going to just work? Yes, there it is. So the Cat 5 cable will actually power the LED. And in between the two, I'm going to put in a switch. So the switch will be just like if you unplugged it from the port, it'll stop running, right? I cut a hole just big enough for the power bank in the center grip piece. I copy the hole onto one of the thicker sides and cut it out. And then I also cut it out on the other thick side. And then I stack the parts together again. This should fit inside of it. The battery is slightly taller than the 5 layers of plastic. I mash the next layer against the battery to mark where it touches and cut out a smaller hole that just fits around the battery. I cut some trim pieces from textured ABS plastic, and the trim piece will hide the last piece of battery that's exposed. It totally fits within that. That's great. Okay, so that's all the holes I need to cut. I cut a notch in some of the layers to allow the micro USB to plug in. And I cut a small notch for the end of the LED strip to fit inside of the grip. At last, I start gluing the blade to the rest of the sword. The ABS backing glues really easily to the foamed PVC sheet. Now I know where I want my power switch to go, so I can solder it into the positive wire. I set the clear acrylic center layer next. And now it's cut to touch the back of the glowing blade, so I can glue it all the way down the back of the blade. And I use a series of clamps to hold the clear acrylic to the back of the blade while the glue sets. I remove the clamps and start gluing down the other thick layer of foamed PVC. With all the layers mostly glued on, I solder the wires to the back of the USB plug, directly connecting the LEDs to the battery pack. Come on, just thank you. That's all I wanted. Of course, the big question also is, once I get it all done, is it going to charge, or is it going to hold the charge once and be dead, Jim? Oh, so the blue light does come on. Oh, that's interesting. Oh, but it goes off. So it's on while it's on. Yes, good, okay. Good, that means it won't permanently drain it. Okay, now, I add a tiny piece of PVC to hold the circuit board still, because it's going to be a lot easier to plug the USB cable in if it doesn't move around inside. Then I glue the extra grip layer over the battery, sealing everything in place. The wiring is in. I sand the edges of the grip. The layers didn't match up too well. And then I use a very small round over bit on the router to curve the edges of the grip and make them slightly more comfortable. And I can glue the textured ABS panels that I had cut to both fully cover the battery and add some details to the grip. Before I make the Suba, I carefully drill some circle marks into the blade and on the grip. To clean up the back of the blade, I glue on a thin strip of styrene plastic, which means I'm gonna have to paint it now. I cut a Suba from a piece of 6mm foam PVC. I sand the edges so they're not quite as sharp, and I glue it in place with sprinkler glue. I put tape over the blade, the clear plastic, and the switch, so I can spray paint the sword black. And when the paint dries, I'll peel the tape and super glue in some tiny detail screws, just enough to make the sword look like it was manufactured. Most of the materials I used for this project I picked up locally. I put a list in the description. I've completed my Thermal Katana as almost seen in Cyberpunk 2077. This was a bit more challenging than expected to build. And as far as a prop goes, I think this is probably a better one to 3D print. I just happen to like to make things by hand. And since I'm not machining it, there's a certain few details that became a bit more challenging. I don't think there's gonna be a much better way to light up the blade. You can get an LED strip that has more LEDs per meter, basically. You can get one that has LEDs right next to each other. But from what I can see up here, you're probably still gonna see the individual LEDs, so I'm not too worried about that. The battery will last longer because there's less draw off the battery. And the battery was a fun challenge as well because there's no real obvious easy place to put it. I mean, there's an obvious one, it has to go on the handle, but there's no easy place to put it. And I think I solved that okay. Part of that also was not actually putting the holes in the handle, and there's supposed to be a couple more. I'm going to acknowledge that because all of you are going to say that in the comments. This was intentional because Sintra is a fairly soft plastic, and I had a concern that if it was honeycombed like it's supposed to be, or holes, it's not honeycombed, the Sintra could bend and give out if you were to carry it around at a con, because there's quite a bit of weight going on here for just down at the handle. Keeping it solid, it's going to do a whole lot better, and it's not going to provide a failure point. So it was very much an intentional choice, partly because of materials, to do this without the hole, and I think it's okay. I think it's fine. Cyberpunk is all about customization and uniqueness, right? I mean, this is probably a unique weapon anyway, but still, I'm fine with modifying it slightly. Now, this was a really cool prop from, well, almost from the game. Since the game's come out, there's been a whole lot more fun, interesting, and humorous things that have been released. And there's one that definitely I think would be a very funny video to make, but to be honest, you're not going to see a whole lot if I was to actually bother to make it. So, unfortunately, I think Cephalostiff is going to have to wait till maybe almost never. I'm not sure if this will ever be made as a YouTube video because you'll never see it. It's always going to be a pixelated mess. But Thermal Katanas and a lot of other fun things from Cyberpunk 2077, we can make those. And this is how Odin makes. I know a lot of you are wondering, I didn't actually make Cephalostiff. It's just a piece of rolled pink foam on a wooden dowel, so it'd be funny for a joke. There's no point in actually making it. I would have to pixelate it for the whole video. Flamethrower! I want to thank Nicole King, Nick Ingram, and all of my Patreon supporters. My Patreon support is the #1 thing that makes this show possible. If you like the video, don't forget to subscribe. Have an idea for something for me to make? Please leave a comment below. And if you make any of these projects, you can send me a picture.